Hey guys, CommodorePET here and welcome back to another video on my channel. Now today's video is going to be a little bit different than a regular normal Jartex Skywars video. Like I said before, I was going to do like a big tips and tricks video, but as I was writing it, I realized that it's just way too long to put into one video, so I'm going to split it up into parts. Now, today's part is basically going over the 3 different types of play styles of Jartex players and how to counter them. Alright, so let's get into it. So, the first play style here is the aggro player. Now, this is basically me, okay? The aggro player is somebody who is like really common for like somebody who likes to grind leaderboards or just overall a highly skilled player like myself. And overall, I'd say about 15 to 20% of Jartex players play like this. These type of players tend to rush very quickly and loot quickly. They sort of know what items to use, how many blocks it takes to rush different islands, and like how long it takes to get to middle and where players are coming from. And pretty much aggro players usually are very stacked and able to rush enemies with no problems at all. Are pretty you have like full prot 3 and they have like the sharpness 3s or the beast boots and stuff, and they're very aggressive and they're basically prepared to fight anybody. Now, going into the ways to counter an aggro player. Number 1 is be an aggro player yourself. So, just rush middle as quickly as possible and try to get loot before everybody else does. That's one way to do it. Just be more aggressive than the aggro player. For the second way here is to basically be defensive, which means wait for them to cross bridges, try to fight them in areas where that you'll have an upper hand, like near the void, or if you have high ground, things like that, to help you basically take out people who are very aggressive, who have better gear. And number 3 is to just sort of wait for them to fight other people and just clean them up. That's the easiest way, because usually with aggro players, especially like me, I'm fighting a lot of players, and at the end of the fight, I could be pretty low in health, around 1 to 2 hearts, and if somebody wants to just jump on my back, then I'd be pretty much dead, because I was so aggressive in fighting players. And, that's what a lot of people like to do. They like to clean up the very aggressive players, because you get all the loot for doing absolutely nothing, which, a lot of people like to do. Now, moving on to the second playstyle, it is the defensive playstyle. Now, defensive is similar to aggro, but it's like being more cautious. So, defensive players still rush the middle and they try to get all the gear, but they're more cautious about who they fight. Now, I'd say 30% of the players on Jartex actually play like this. I'm also defensive myself, depending on the situation that I'm in. So say, for example, if I don't have much healing, like gapples, regen, or health pots, and stuff like that, then, I'm pretty much playing very defensive. Or if I'm, under geared, right, didn't get any of the middle chests, I'm still in full prot 2, or have a sharp 2, and I know these people have, sharp 3s or beast boots, then I'm playing very defensive. Now, defensive players usually aren't the best PvPers ever. Now, I'm not saying all defensive players are bad players by any means, because I'm a defensive player at times, like I said, but usually these players are not the most insane PvPers you're gonna find, right? They like to use things like their environment to their advantage, so placing a lot of blocks, getting on top of towers, they like to sort of knock people off if they get high ground, wait for them to cross bridges and with snowballs, stuff like that. They like to use the environment to their advantage. But now we're gonna go into countering a defensive player. Now, the easiest way to counter a defensive player is to be aggressive yourself. That's basically trying to force them to fight on your turf and not fight on their turf, so to speak. You want them to sort of fight you at the middle, and rather than them running over to another island and waiting there with snowballs or building on top of a tree or something like that. You want them to fight you where you will win that fight. When you're super aggressive and super good at PvP, you want to basically put them on your turf, right? So that's pretty much the way to beat defensive players. You want to always be on them, pulling on their back, or making sure that they're right in front of you at all times. Not letting them run away, not letting them trap or do anything like that. You know, you want them to be right next to you. Now, for the last and final playstyle, it is the campers. Now, unlike defensive or aggro players, like, these guys, they just don't like to move, okay? You know, they just want to sit on their islands and, like, stare at people go by. I don't know, they just like the view. It's just, they just stare at everybody running around, building, fighting, and all this sort of stuff. And, you know, they don't clean up, they don't do anything. They just sit on their island the entire game. I like it. You know, I'd say, like, 40% of the players on Jartex play like this. You know, it's a pretty good amount. And these players are like the worst PvPers. Like, it's, some of them have like no clue what day of the week it is. Like, you hit them from behind and like you'll just stand there and it takes them a solid 2 or 3 seconds to even notice what happened. Like, those are the type of campers that you find on Jartex Network. Players that have absolutely no idea what they're doing. So for the majority of these players, they have absolutely no game sense at all, and they're not that hard to beat. A lot of them like to use snowballs and stuff to knock you off. They're like, oh my god, you know, little Timmy's got to get his first win, right? You know what I'm saying? And they try to get their, you know, their snowballs and eggs and stuff out, but most of the time they miss, and it's pretty easy to fake them out by, like, walking back and forth on the bridge, you know, making them use their snowballs and stuff like that. You know, like, they're not really the best players, and the easiest way to counter a camper is to basically be defensive, because, you know, they're not going to move. So you have to come to them unless you, like, do something like build a bridge and make them feel safe, and then do something like hold shift behind a tree, like I do a lot, you know, all that sort of stuff, to, like, make them feel safe enough to leave their island. Then you can, like, you know, jump and, you know, jump them and try to actually win that fight, which most of the case, you know, like, you're gonna win it because you have way better stuff and they're usually missing a chest plate or something like that. You know, so basically just try to allow them to come to you, maybe like make them feel safe, or, you know, don't allow them to like run away and do stuff like that, because campers tend to also like to run and run and run. Like, campers are also like the trappers, so the people who try to make traps that you've seen over and over again, probably like 24,000 times over like the last like 4 years you've been playing the game. Right, so, you know, overall, just keep purling on them, hitting them away from islands, keep them in an area where you know you can fight them, and also, if they're just on their base, the easiest way is to just get to their base, because they probably won't leave it, and, you know, just end up killing them. But anyways, that is me going over the 3 different play styles of Jartex players, you know, and basically how to beat them. Just a quick thing. After this video, I'm going to be doing a lot more tips and tricks, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a regular Skywars video, then a tips and tricks, then regular Skywars tips and tricks. Just keep alternating in between those. Yeah, that's pretty much how this is going to work, but I hope you all enjoyed. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye, and have a great day.